But this is important because if you're really intent in getting clear about what your true nature is and you want to experience your true nature, and you already are experiencing your true nature, but you don't know it, right? Then what has to happen is you have to tune your ability to see it. You have to tune your ability to see it, just like when you look at this Klein bottle, which is supposed to be a model of something that the inside and the outside are the same thing, right? It's mind-boggling, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, my wife gave me this years ago, and I remember when she gave it to me, I looked at it and I said, "What the hell is that?" You know, and today I looked it up on the internet again, and I still don't really understand it, although I'm looking at it. You know, and then the same thing is true with the nectar cube. You know, it is a perceptual phenomena, right? We can see that the front and the back can change, right? And we can see that we can see three different things here: the front, the back, and the two-dimensional reality of it. So there's three realities occurring at the same time, but you can only, now watch, there's three realities occurring at the same time, but you can only see one of them at a time. Notice that? Yeah, so your perception has to adjust for you to be able to see the other aspects of the same thing. And they're all there at the same time. Right? So these are different ways of trying to understand what you're dealing with when what you're dealing with is experiencing or seeing your true nature. Now here's the caveat, right? Everything I just said is all conceptual, right? And the experience of your true nature is non-conceptual. So everything I just said doesn't count. But it does in the sense that at least it's pointing to it, right? It's pointing to it, but at some point you have to let go of the concepts. At some point you have to let go of the concepts, and this is why relaxing the body and calming the mind are so important in terms of the practice of meditation. If you can get this nervous system to relax enough so that the autonomic nervous system comes into balance, then it's possible to experience the reality of what you are. And that's why I say when you're practicing meditation, if you just allow yourself to notice that when your eyes are closed and your body's relaxed, the body is existing in your awareness. When your eyes are closed and you're relaxed, you're experiencing the awareness, and the body's in the awareness instead of the awareness being in the body. And if the body's in the awareness, what does that mean? If you're the awareness and the body's in the awareness, what does that mean?
You're both the body and awareness.
Well, yeah, the body's the form, just like the personality's the form, right? But the form is awareness. See, without awareness, there could be no form. Do you see that? But we're used to seeing the form, right? Because we live in a form world. So we're used to seeing the form. That's why when you walk into this room, you don't see the space, you see the room, right? So you have to recondition yourself. You have to retrain your brain and your mind to be able to recognize what doesn't have form, but can be recognized, right? And it takes practice. That's how you got to see the form, wasn't it? You know, when you were a baby and you just got language, right? And the baby just sees, the infant before it has language just sees colors and shapes. It doesn't see anything, right? And then we come along and we say, oh, this is a bottle. And then the baby sees a form that's distinct from everything else called the bottle. And then we build on that. You know, this is the bottle, that's this, that's it. And what are you doing? You're creating the world with the baby. You're creating the world, you know? One of the philosophers said language is the house of being. That's an interesting way of looking at it. Language is the house of being. Language creates the world we live in, right? And that world only exists in a conceptual domain. It only exists in language, right? It only exists in language. That's why you can get to a certain point with these practices, and if you really relax the body and calm the mind sufficiently and let go, you can actually experience emptiness, that nothing, there's nothing. It's nothing. They call it the void, right? Emptiness. You can actually experience awareness itself without any form. And that's your true nature. Why is this important? What are you in denial about?
Who we are?
That's true, but that's not what I'm...
Body's gonna die.
That's right.
What did he say?
Thank you.
What did you say?
That the body's gonna die.
Oh.
You're in so much denial about the death of the body, right, that if I point at it, you can't see it. You'll guess everything but that. And yet that's the most important reason to be here, isn't it? Yeah, and if you can actually experience not being the body, right, such that you cannot if you can experience not being the body such that you cannot argue with that as the truth, right, then are you going to be afraid to die? How can you be? Because you're literally experiencing that it isn't going to happen. Because if if what you are has no form, how can you die? That's what the teachings are saying when they say you weren't born and you're not going to die. And you can look at that anytime you want. If you look at the awareness, you can look at it anytime you want. If you distinguish the awareness and you look at it, you can't find the beginning, can you? No. That's because there ain't none. And we're looking at it and trying to understand it with a limited way of conceptualizing it that can't get to the truth. Because if I say you weren't born, right? If I say you weren't born, doesn't your mind like get stuck on that? Oh, I wasn't born. What does that mean? What's that? Because you're not experiencing that which wasn't born, you're experiencing that which was born because you identify yourself with the physical body. See, if you can get this clear enough for yourself, right, when the time comes when most people are freaking out, you can just go to sleep and nap. But can you see that what I'm talking about here kind of gives you a way to get at it a little bit? It gives you kind of a way to get at it, so that the idea, for example, of practicing resting as awareness for brief periods, right? It's another way to think about it that might give you more access, right? Instead of it being so mystical, right? All you have to do is when you're resting as awareness, right? That's why I talk about it like riding a bicycle, because you're discovering a way of being in a state of balance in which you're aware of the form and the emptiness at the same time. You can be aware of the form and the emptiness at the same time, the same way as you were looking at the nectar square, right? But you, in your ordinary state of consciousness, in your everyday state of consciousness, right? Your perceptions are going to be seeing form in your everyday state of consciousness. And that's how you got taught to be as a child, to see form, right? So now we're saying we want to recondition you to expand that, right? Not to deny seeing form, but to include the space the form is in, which is as real as the form is, right? So that you understand the form is an appearance of consciousness. See, one way to ground yourself, to understand what you're looking at whenever you're looking at something and you're confused, is to understand that all there is consciousness. That's all there is. Everything is consciousness. Everything is consciousness. So when you're looking at form, you're seeing consciousness having manifest in form. That's all. And that's what a human life is, consciousness having manifest in form. The form it manifests is the body. And the form it manifests is the personality, right? The personality is a thought form, isn't it? Yeah, it's a thought form. It doesn't exist other than in thought, but we live as if it is real because it's the piece we are in the game we're playing. You get that? You live as if the form you're in is real because it's the piece you are in the game we're playing, and the agreement by humanity is that is reality. Even though that's not it. That's not reality. It's just by agreement. I mean, if everybody agrees, that form is reality, that's materialism, right? That's what scientists argue, right? If everybody agrees form is reality, then that's the world we live in, and that's the world we operate in, even though it's not
That's how we
true.
function.
Yeah, it's the world we function in, but it's half-assed. That's why it doesn't work. It's half-assed. Because you don't include in that what allows you to experience well-being. You see it? If you don't include in that what allows you to experience well-being, then you will suffer trying to experience well-being. That's called the pursuit of happiness. You're suffering trying to have an experience you cannot have as the form you take yourself to be. You cannot have that experience. So what happens as you relax the nervous system and you begin to let go of the conceptual limitations that you're living in, right? If you can let that go, you can start to experience an expansion, an expansiveness of your experience, because you're experiencing consciousness now, not just the form, right? And if you can get to a point where you're in your everyday life living in form and aware of your true nature at the same time, right? You'll be sane and you'll be able to experience well-being, which means you have fulfilled the possibility of your life. Do you understand? You have fulfilled the possibility of your life, because that's the possibility that has been part of your existence from the beginning, but most human beings don't finish the job. Most human beings only get to the form part, right? It's interesting because you start out formless in the infant. As the infant, you start out formless, right? Then you identify with the form, right? But that's where you stop. That's where you stop. Right? That's why, what is this? There's a biblical saying, you have to become like a child or something. What is it?
You have to be born again.
Yeah, you have to become like a baby. Right? You have to go back and experience what you were before you took on form, right? So that you can enjoy both the form and the emptiness at the same time. Now, what that'll do is, if you're able to experience the balance of being the form and the emptiness at the same time, what that'll do is, when you're in form, and because you're in form, you're experiencing neuroticism. See, neuroticism is the experience of being limited by the form. Makes you neurotic, right? So when you're in the form, you're experiencing neuroticism. But if you're in a balanced state where you're experiencing the emptiness and the form at the same time, when the form is being crazy, the emptiness will balance it out. So you'll be able to realize, oh, I'm thinking thoughts and feeling feelings that if I let that use my mouth, there's going to be trouble here. But if I'm in balance, and I have the balance that experiencing myself as awareness gives me, right? Then I can understand that I need not worry about whether I express those thoughts. That's just neurotic stuff playing in my mind. And if you can experience that kind of balance, right, your relationships will start to work, right? Because you won't be putting yourself in conflict anymore. And you'll be happy, satisfied, and peaceful, because that's the nature of the formless aspect of what you are. Its natural state is to be satisfied, happy, and peaceful. So that's one of the litmus tests. If you're practicing meditation to relax the nervous system and you understand, developing these understandings about what the truth is, right? Now you have all you need to practice in a way that will allow you to have the best of all worlds, will allow you to have the possibility of a human life. And if you experience that at this particular time in the world, if you experience that, you will be one of the few. You will be one of the blessed. You'll be one of the people graced with the truth. And that's something that you should be really have a lot of gratification for, because the rest of the world is in bad shape, and it's not getting better, it's getting worse. And that's what I mean when I say to you, just because the herd's running off a cliff, you don't have to join. Just because the flock is flying in the wrong direction, you don't have to fly with it, right? you can start to see things from a more realistic perspective and practice every day, including the awareness with the form, so that you can start to experience what it's like to be in a balanced life.